23 minutes into the flight, the man flying this jet was outside it, pinned against the nose at 17,000 feet, held only by the legs. This is the story of how everyone on board lived. British Airways Flight 5390 left Birmingham on the morning of the 10th of June, 1990, bound for Málaga, Spain. 81 passengers, 6 crew. A routine hop. In the cockpit, Captain Tim Lancaster and First Officer Alastair Aitchison ran through a takeoff they had each flown hundreds of times. Nothing about the aircraft, a BAC-111, suggested anything was wrong. But something was wrong, and it had been for 27 hours. The night before, the aircraft's left windscreen had been replaced. The engineer, working against the clock, fitted the new panel using bolts he selected by eye, matching them to the old ones. 84 of the 90 bolts he chose were a fraction too small in diameter. The rest were the right size but too short. The windscreen was now held in place by fasteners that could not do the job. On the ground, it looked perfect. In the air, it was a countdown. The plane climbed through 17,000 feet. Breakfast service had just begun. Lancaster loosened his shoulder harness. And then, with a bang that sounded like a bomb, the left windscreen blew out. The cabin decompressed instantly. A fog of condensation filled the cockpit. And Captain Lancaster was gone, ripped up and out of his seat, flung headfirst through the hole where the windscreen had been. The wind pinned him against the outside of the fuselage, his body folded over the nose of the aircraft, facing a 200-mile-an-hour slipstream. He would have been lost in that instant, except for what happened next. A flight attendant, Nigel Ogden, had just stepped into the cockpit. He lunged and grabbed the captain by the belt and the legs. The force trying to pull Lancaster out was enormous. Ogden was dragged halfway out himself, frostbite already biting his hand, and still he did not let go. The cockpit door had blown onto the control console. Papers and debris were being sucked out around them. First Officer Aitchison was now alone at the controls of a decompressed airliner, unable to hear the radio over the roar of the wind, with his captain's body draped across the windscreen in front of him and another crew member holding on by the trousers. Aitchison made a decision. He kept flying. He began an emergency descent toward Southampton, the nearest airport, declaring a mayday he could barely hear acknowledged. More crew came forward to take Ogden's place, bracing his arms as they went numb. For more than 20 minutes, human hands were the only thing keeping Tim Lancaster attached to the aircraft. The crew on the flight deck believed the captain was already dead. His body was motionless, battered by wind and cold. To pull him back inside risked jamming the controls. So they held on, and Aitchison flew. At Southampton, a runway built for smaller aircraft, Aitchison brought the 111 down. A single, clean landing, with a body across the nose and no way to see through the captain's side of the windscreen. The plane rolled to a stop. Emergency crews swarmed it. And Tim Lancaster was alive. He had survived more than 20 minutes exposed at altitude, with frostbite, bruising, and fractures to his arm and wrist. Nigel Ogden survived with frostbite and a dislocated shoulder. Every single person on board Flight 5390 walked away. 5 months later, Tim Lancaster returned to flying. The bolts were the cause. The men in that cockpit were the reason it wasn't a tragedy. On that morning, the difference between 87 deaths and 0 was a flight attendant who refused to let go.